If we want to stop this, we need to understand what the AI surveillance pipeline is and how it works. Can you describe that for us?
Sure. You may have heard the quote, data is the new oil. So let's start there. If you extract oil from the ground and you want to make money and power off of it, you need a pipeline, a system to do that. Otherwise, all you've got is this big stinky puddle on your hands. It's the same thing with data. The system that leads from you generating your single data point online, at work, at home, or in your car, to you being targeted with ads or even grabbed off the street is what we call the AI surveillance pipeline.
How exactly does it work?
Um, First, just like oil gets extracted from the ground, corporations extract data from workers and consumers that can be bought and sold for profit. For example, what we don't always realize is that when we load an app, very often our data is not shared with just that app. Instead, it's actually shuttled into a complex system of digital advertising exchanges in which our data is made available to hundreds or even thousands of parties for them to sell and resell. And this is where another group that many of us know less about, the data brokers, come in. In our pipeline analogy, data brokers are like the refineries. They collect and compile our data and process it to make it more usable. For example, they can make encyclopedic data dossiers of individuals that are scraped from thousands of sources. It's estimated that they have data dossiers on millions of people, including over two-thirds of US residents. Data brokers then sell our raw or processed data to others for a profit. Data brokers range from giant companies like Relics, which some of you may know as Lexis, and Thomson Reuters, which some of you may know as Westlaw, to others you may have never heard of. In fact, the US data broker market is so shadowy that we still don't know how many data brokers there are. And this is despite it being an enormous market, estimated to reach over $400 billion by 2032.
So if you want to understand something, you have to follow the money. Who are these data brokers selling our data to?
Sure. In a pipeline, pumps are what keep the pressure high, and they're what keep the oil flowing through the pipe. In the AI surveillance pipeline, the pumps, the profit motive that keeps the data flowing, are the entities to whom the data is being sold. And here you've got two main kinds of pumps. Corporations, for one, they can buy our data and use it to build even more powerful AI models that can suck more profits out of us by squeezing us at both ends. They can use it to raise prices by individually targeting us to pressure us to pay the most we can in any situation. That's called surveillance pricing. And they can also use it to lower our wages by doing the same things to workers to pay them the least they can in any situation. That's called surveillance wages. But the government is another pump. It's also a giant purchaser of all this data.
Why is that?
You know, the chilling reality is that data brokers are a very effective way for our government, including ICE and the police, to sidestep our constitutional protections. Under what's known as the Fourth Amendment loophole, if the government is just buying our data from a data broker or another corporation, then it's a voluntary transaction and the government doesn't need a warrant. And if that sounds scary, it gets worse. Typically, in a pipeline, there are safety valves that kick in when the pressure and the danger become too great. But right now, in our AI surveillance pipeline, there are basically no safety valves. The mass surveillance that's enabled by the flow of data between large corporations, data brokers, and the government is essentially without guardrails. Privacy and human rights advocates warn that tech companies like Palantir are being tapped by the federal government to gather and organize our personal information, paving the way for the administration to observe our lives in unprecedented detail and to weaponize the data of millions.
And so, where are the household name companies like the Googles, Facebooks, and Amazons of the world in all of this?
Yes, these companies play a central role in enabling the AI surveillance pipeline. Google and Facebook run massive platforms that financially incentivize corporations to voraciously slurp up our data in order to run targeting messaging and ads. Companies like Amazon develop surveillance tech and operate the cloud infrastructure that serves as the invisible backbone of corporate and government surveillance. All three companies are also pushing an enormous build out of data centers that threaten our community's water and energy supplies and so much more. And the data centers are not just to store our photos and emails, they're also to fuel the growth of this for profit mass surveillance machine.
So, is there anything we can do about this?
Yeah, this is not a problem that we can solve by individually fiddling with our privacy settings. At the end of the day, stopping the AI surveillance pipeline requires a collective response.